Monday Night Raw starts off with a Drew McIntyre promo. He comes out. He ends up mentioning his match after his match at Hell in a Cell. Mentions that no one checked up on him after Bad Blood, and he ends up saying that I thought we was all supposed to be a family in the locker room, but that's a lie. And he ends up saying that his true family would never stab him in the back, but he know that people like Jey Uso, Jimmy, and Sami Zayn would do that. And he ends up saying, you guys easily forget all the bad things that the Bloodline has done to me and that you guys turned on me for a guy that ended up leaving you guys for years, alluding to CM Punk. And he ends up saying that I am tired of giving. I'm always the one giving. Now I am going to start taking. And he says that, and I'm going to keep continuing to tell the truth, and that the real villains of the WWE are Roman Reigns and CM Punk, and that he is coming for everyone that has ever screwed him. Then you end up getting Sami Zayn. He ends up coming out, and he ends up basically talking about all the hardships that Drew McIntyre has went through, due to, the career, the traveling and all that. And ends up mentioning that everyone in the arena have hardships as well, went through similar, issues, but they get up every day, don't complain and keep moving forward, and don't blame others for their issues, unlike you who keep on blaming others for their own problems. Then he ends up mentioning that the fans have turned on him, and he was like, the fans didn't turn on you, they ended up making you. They made you the man you are today. And then later in the promo, he ends up mentioning how Drew McIntyre thinks the world revolves around him, which was and he ends up saying a great line. He ends up mentioning how Drew McIntyre thinks everything revolves around him. And he says that the reason why you think this is because some guy told you that you was the chosen one, which I thought that was a really great line, because CM Punk also used that line as well. I think in one of their promos building up towards their SummerSlam match, if I'm not mistaken. No, it may not have been their SummerSlam. It might have been towards their build up towards the Bad Blood match. But I remember him also using the Chosen, alluding to, being called the Chosen One as well. Then, Sammy and Drew, they go back and forth. Sammy alludes to, having a match with Drew. Drew ends up saying, basically responding back, ends up saying that there's really no reason for them to have a match because he already beats him every single time. There's no reason to have another match. Sammy ends up alluding to, him constantly losing to Drew. So he ends up attacking Drew McIntyre to prove that he can beat Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre gets the upper hand. Then you get Jey Uso. He then comes out, comes in the ring, ends up making the save. Then this leads to the main event, which will eventually be Drew McIntyre versus Sami Zayn, building upon that rivalry. Afterwards, you end up getting the women's triple threat match for this is the last match in the first round. Io Sky, Natalia versus Apple Fire. I did not watch this match at all. Didn't watch it because I already knew who was gonna win because I did see this last week. I did see the leak. I saw like a leak clip. And plus it was very obvious that Io Sky was gonna win. She ends up replacing Kairi Sane due to an injury angle, but also Kairi Sane is actually injured. That is the report that I actually saw, so that's why Io Sky took over. Um, yeah, I don't really care because I already knew who was gonna win. But let's just hope, let's just hope that Io Sky does not actually win this mid card championship. Let's just hope that is not the plan. Let's hope that this is just her being filled in because they had no one else to replace her. But let's just hope that that is not the plan. Okay, that is not the plan because she doesn't need the mid card championship. No, let's just hope that that is not the plan. So Io Sky wins. Let's just hope that next week Lyra's the one that advances, okay, and then on the other bracket probably should be Zoe, because I just don't see the world where you would do Io Sky and Dakota Kai, especially not now, because typically when Triple H does stuff like that, he typically builds it up. So let's just hope that Lyra advances, and that's all we need. Afterwards, we end up getting the Judgment Day segment. Not going to speak too much on the Judgment Day segment. This is just a quick segment to keep showing the downfall of the Judgment Day eventually breaking up. You end up showing all of the Judgment Day members and it's Finn Balor and Liv Morgan going back and forth. They're constantly going back and forth, kind of antagonizing each other. Liv Morgan kept on, antagonizing Finn Balor by saying that the reason why she told him not to go after Damian Priest is because she knew that he would eventually lose his championship due to Damian Priest. Then they kept going back. They're going back and forth, but they're not talking to each other's face. They're kind of like they're doing like that silent treatment thing where they end up telling someone else to tell them what they want to tell the other person. I can I hope I make sense when I'm saying, but then you end up getting Dominik. He ends up, stopping, the commotion, and he basically ends up saying that he's gonna go to Adam Pearce to end up calling a match for Damian Priest to end up fixing all this. So later in the show, you end up getting Dominik versus Damian Priest. Afterwards, though, you end up getting Chad Gable versus Akira Tozawa. Chad Gable picks up the victory. Not gonna speak too much about the match, but after the match, he ends up making Tozawa tap out in the ankle lock, and he keeps on holding the ankle lock. He's not letting go, which allowed Otis to eventually stop Chad Gable. And then Otis starts doing that thing where he starts charging up and stuff and getting the crowd hype. But then American Made ends up falling back. I will say this. I think the feud itself can easily get back to what it was at its peak, because during this segment, Otis got good, baby. Like, Chad Gable still gets crazy heel heat. Like, he still gets the "you suck" chants when he comes out. Like, he still gets good heel heat, and Otis got good reactions when he still gets great babyface reactions. So I think this feud can easily pick back up to where it was. I do find it weird that they just randomly stopped the feud, because part of me feels like either two things happen. Either one, they didn't want to continue the feud, that they just didn't see the potential in it, or two, they just assumed that the Wyatt Six feud would have been better for Chad Gable, and then they just had no plans for him afterwards, so they just decided to go back to this. Overall, I think the feud could be great. The only concern I have is that, based on how the build of this feud and everything that Otis went through, logically speaking, based off how WWE typically does things, it would make logical sense for Otis to win this feud. But we all know that Chad Gable is going to be the main star, the main guy that they will want to push. While Otis, I just don't see a world where they would actually push Otis outside of maybe the mid card team, where Chad, even though I don't think Chad is going to be like this super main eventer, but I can see a world where Chad actually wins like World Heavyweight Championship one day. So that's the only thing I'm a bit concerned about, because like logically speaking, it should be Otis winning, being the ultimate underdog, but Chad Gable kind of needs this win, and it would kind of make sense for him to win due to WWE probably having more faith in Chad Gable and stuff like that. So I'm interested to see where it goes, but I'm very interested to who to have win, who I would assume would be Chad Gable, but it wouldn't be surprised if Otis ends up picking up the victory in this feud. Now we end up getting Dominik Mysterio, Damian Priest. Interference ends up happening. Basically, the Judgment Day ends up attacking Damian Priest, causing disqualification. Then you end up getting the War Raiders comes out to help make the save for Damian Priest. Look, okay. It looks like the War Raiders are still going to have issues with the Judgment Day, because after this, Damian Priest ends up mentioning that he's going to help the War Raiders fight off the Judgment Day, so it's like they're still going to be involved. Okay. I'm still confused on what was the whole point of having Finn Balor come back and cost Damian Priest, because if you was going to reunite the whole feud with Damian Priest and Finn Balor, what you needed to do was have Finn Balor come off more as a threat. And I don't mean be able to beat Damian Priest clean, but you needed him to stand tall against him by just cheating. Having Damian Priest still be able to, now yes, he got help instead of just destroying all of the Judgment Day members. He got help this time, but even with him getting help, it just makes the Judgment Day look so weak and incompetent. Now, to be fair, they always been somewhat weak and incompetent, but in this scenario, it just makes them look so weak, where to the point where, why do I want to see this match? Why? Like, why do I want to see a Damian Finn Balor match? Also, if we do have a Damian Finn Balor match, it needs to be a stipulation. You need to have it be some type of stipulation, no disqual, something, because for a rivalry that's supposed to be as heated with the history that they have, it should be a stipulation. I don't know when they're going to have their blow-off match, but hopefully it's soon, because the build has just been bad. The constant Damian Priest standing tall, and I love Damian Priest, but you got to make it more of a balance of a back and forth if you really want to make this interesting. But it seems like that's not the route they're going. So we'll see how this plays out, but hopefully this feud ends soon. Afterwards, when I'm getting The Miz versus Dexter Lumis, this also ended disqualification. Final Testament ended up interfering, causing the disqualification. The Final Testament was about to jump Dexter Lumis, but then the lights cut off, and then the Wyatt Six come out, and they end up saving Dexter. Not gonna really. I will say this. This match was very confusing, very weird to me because of the crowd. Now, this was a tape show. This was a tape show. So maybe that's why. But the crowd energy was just so off for this match. Barely any pop. And then the in ring work was very sloppy in this. So I don't know if the chemistry wasn't there, but the in ring work was very iffy. Now, I do know with tape shows, typically what they do is they have one show either live, their first show live, and then afterwards, after that show is over, they do another show back to back, and then and that second show typically be the tape show, or they tape the first show and then tape another show for the next week after, the next week after. So maybe that's why the crowd wasn't as hyped, because maybe this was the second show that they taped and the crowd wasn't as, as hyped. They probably was tired. So maybe that's why. But this felt a little off. Something just felt off in this entire segment. Then we end up getting the New Day. They end up cutting the promo. They end up trying to cut the promo they tried to cut a week ago or 2 weeks ago, basically saying that they're not the bad guys and that they had every right to, do what they did to E. Kofi ends up mentioning that they could have easily attacked Big E. They could have they could have injured him, but they didn't. And then he ends up saying that, then he ends up mentioning his mom being in the front row. He was like, look, I bought my mom a plane ticket to come out to see me. Like, she doesn't deserve to see her son get booed, but they're just constantly booing the New Day. Just booing, booing. Then you end up getting Kofi, goes up to his mom in the front row, tries to hug her, and she refuses to hug him. And then she ends up alluding to that he's in the wrong for betraying. This is hilarious, bro. They're having everyone saying that they're wrong for betraying. But you even had a segment where Kobe and Xavier wanted to know from Dominik Mysterio whether or not he was in the wrong, whether they was in the wrong, and even he said that they did what they did was messed up. Which, this is hilarious that everyone is saying that they're in the wrong, which is crazy because logically speaking, they're in the right. But since it's Big E, he's supposed to be this guy who is very beloved, they're the bad guys. But logically speaking, the New Day are right. But this is hilarious. It is hilarious that they actually have his own mother not want to hug him because she thinks that is hilarious. That is hilarious. This is actually making me like the New Day more. This is making me root for them even more because I think they're in the right. The New Day are in the right. I'm sorry. They're in the right. I get that Big E is this beloved person, but the New Day's in the right. This is great. This was a great segment. I love them slowly building them up. I'm very interested to see how they ended up, what's next for them. How they I wonder they're still going to keep the same gimmick, because right now they're still the New Day. They're just getting booed now because they still, I wouldn't say, they still technically act like baby faces. They haven't really changed their like character and stuff. They just get booed now because they still are justified in the way of their thinking. So I'm interested, are they gonna go down a deeper hole of them eventually turning fully heel, of them being more ruthless and not caring, or they're still gonna carry the act of them being baby faces but they just get booed. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. Then we get the main event, Drew versus Sami. Sami was about to pick up the victory, beating Drew McIntyre for the first time, but his back ends up going out because the angle they was playing was that he wasn't 100% cleared. He wasn't percent healthy. The back ends up going out during the haluva kick. Drew McIntyre ends up hitting a claymore, picking up the victory. After the match, Drew McIntyre attacks Sami Zayn, but then you get Jey Uso. He comes out. Then you end up getting the Bloodline coming out. The Bloodline ends up coming out, ends up attacking Jey Uso. They attack Sami Zayn. Drew McIntyre was in the ring, but he ends up leaving the ring, allowing them to attack Sami and Jey. And then that's the end of end of Monday Night Raw. The Bloodline stand tall. Overall, this was an okay show. It was a tape show. They're just, coasting until Raw on Netflix. Plus, they end up doing these tape shows because it is the holidays. This gives wrestlers more time to spend time with their family. Makes obvious sense. So next week's show, I'm expecting to be an okay show as well. Same for probably NXT and SmackDown. So overall, it was an alright show. But you guys let me know your opinions down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. But yeah, that's it.